God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God has smiled on me. He's been good.
Tuesday, April 22nd. Do you know what time it is? It's Al Sharpton's time. And for the next 3 hours, it's time for pretenses, deception, denial, and fronting. The time has come to keep it real on Keeping It Real with Reverend Sharpton. A very good afternoon to all of you across the country, and good morning to our West Coast listeners. And welcome to all those listening on Sirius XM, Channel 126, Urban View, where talk empowers and becomes action. I'm Dominique Sharpton, Reverend Sharpton's eldest daughter. I'm sitting in for the Rev for just a few moments. Rev is joining us momentarily. Many of you know that we are sincerely mourning the passing of Pope Francis, and Reverend Sharpton is on his way from paying respects at a special ceremony in honor of the Pope. The world is mourning Pope Francis, who was a bold reformer and who passed away on yesterday at the age of 88. Tributes are certainly pouring out for Pope Francis, who passed away from a stroke that led to irreversible heart failure. And he was known for challenging conservative norms and uplifting the poor. He certainly leaves behind a transformative legacy within the Catholic Church, and we certainly want to pay our respects to him and his family and all those around the world who is mourning this passing. It is keeping it real. And so we are here. You can participate in today's unique conversation, as always, by calling us at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. We got a lot to talk about, and certainly the lines are open for us to continue the dialogue for action. We know in this moment, in this time, in this era, we have to be sincere and committed to the action and doing what we can to make the progress that we want to see become a reality. And we got a lot to talk about, certainly for those who were tuned in last night. National Action Network's Youth Huddle met. And we had a lot to talk about. We were talking about this issue as Harvard University is suing the Trump administration to stop the freeze of more than $2 billion in grants. Want to talk about that. Harvard University filed a suit to stop the Trump administration's freeze on over $2.2 billion in research grants after the university refused demands to curb student activism, overhaul leadership, and audit campus diversity. And Harvard is arguing that the freeze is politically motivated and violates constitutional protections. And the White House has slammed Harvard University, calling the funding a privilege. The Trump administration accused Harvard of failing to meet basic conditions for federal aid, with a White House spokesperson saying that the gravy train of taxpayer funding is over. Trump himself suggested that the university could lose its tax-exempt status for promoting what he called terrorist-inspired ideology. Certainly, education leaders and also civil rights leaders and advocates are praising Harvard's legal action, but we know that we must do our part. And if we're talking about saving and upholding the standards of diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether we're talking about meeting and holding corporations accountable for their tactics and their continued use of overuse or misuse of how they are implementing strategies and policies that impact us, people of color in our community, we have to be not on notice, but we've got to be actively involved in how we're combating these issues head on. And so we're taking your calls across the country. We want you to join in on the conversation. You can call us at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. I'm hearing that Reverend Sharpton is in the building, and so we are going to hear from Reverend Sharpton momentarily. But we know that we are gearing up for August the 28th. Many of you have received the information for our March on Wall Street. As we know, we commemorate every year the March on Washington, the historic March on Washington, where we gather to really deal with the demands of our people as it relates to education equality, healthcare equality, jobs and justice. We come together, we stand together, and we know that a collective front, a collective unity is what we need to really drive the forces forward. And so we will be convening in New York this August 28th. We're asking for anyone who believes in this fight, who believes in this cause, to join us, whether you join us as a partner, whether you organize your own bus, whether you organize your community, your churches, your schools, people on your job. Everyone should be on notice to join us on August 28th in New York, as we will be marching for justice, for equality, in the face of standing for DEI to stay alive, and so many things that we are adamantly aware of that we need to be actively involved in pursuing to change. So if you are interested and you have not signed up to join us at the march, you can log on to our website at www.nationalactionnetwork.net and sign up to join us today. We got a lot to talk about, and certainly know that you are on the line and want to hear from you. You can join us in the conversation today by calling us at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. And as we are talking about things that are going on with the government in terms of, how policies and things are shaping up and playing out. We know specifically in New York, we are dealing with this, and we talked about this last night at the Youth Huddle as well. 25% are living on the poverty level in New York. This is things that we are facing right now, things that we are dealing with, whether we're dealing with housing crisis, whether we're dealing with the inflation causes and rises and cost of living. If we are dealing with how, like I said, DEI standards and policies have literally crippled us in order for us to move forward in terms of how we are climbing the ladder and corporate responsibility, we know that we need to be involved and we need to stay involved in the action. Reverend Sharpton is joining us, and certainly, like I said, you can join in on the conversation by calling us at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. While you're at the website, we know that those of you that are watching us and really staying in tune to what we're doing in terms of the march on Wall Street, JT just put that flyer up online, but we want to make sure that everyone is in tune to what we are doing. So go to the website, www.nationalactionnetwork.net, and make sure you sign up to join us in New York on August the 28th. We've got a lot going on and certainly want to hear from you. You can join in on the conversation by calling us at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. I believe we're about to go to a break, but we'll be right back with more of Keeping It Real with Reverend Al Sharpton.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join Take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement.
So who is Al Sharpton anyway? Who is this 33-year-old preacher without a church?
A number of black New Yorkers as well. He is little more than a pudgy exhibitionist who can be counted on to show up, bullhorn in hand, at every racial incident.
I often quote Mark Twain saying, the two most important moments in life is the moment you are born and the moment you find out why you were born. I had a very troubling conversation the other day that prompted me to do this little video. Young man that I've known a while came to me and he was crushed. I mean, really crushed, because people were criticizing his work. He's in the ministry, but he's also an actor. And he said he couldn't understand why people were jumping all over, criticizing him, trying to find scandalous and derogatory things about him. And I told him, I said, you know, you very young. You don't know the road I've traveled. They called me everything but a child of God.
A blabbermouth, a loudmouth, too flamboyant, an agitator, a racist,
I
a race
had to
baiter.
learn.
Yeah, right.
I was not defined by how others saw me. I was defined by how I saw myself and whether I was being true to myself. Some of you watching this don't like me. And it doesn't matter as long as I know what I'm doing and I like me for being real. So I'm doing this video to say to you, whoever you are and whatever you do, you may not be in ministry or social justice, none of this stuff, but don't live your life worried about opposition or people that don't like you. You can turn that around. Use me as an example. The same people that call me a scam artist, a con artist, a sellout, or racial hustler and all, I kept going. And the people I respected started respecting and publicly embracing my work.
When Coretta Scott King, the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., had this to say about Al Sharpton.
A leader who has protested injustice with a passionate, unrelenting commitment to nonviolent action in the spirit and tradition of Martin Luther King Jr. And I am talking about your leader, our leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
The other thing that hasn't changed is the National Action Network's commitment to fight injustice and inequality here in New York City and across America. And that's not only a testament to Reverend Sharpton, it's a testament to all of you who are here tonight.
First and foremost, to Reverend Sharpton. I saw him when he first came on the scene, and I have marveled at his tenacity, at the development of his intellect, and his devotion to our movement, and much he has contributed to the world we are experiencing. I am honored, and I must say that when I had my debate with Dr. King on the issue of the church and religion, he didn't warn me that after his departure, his space would be filled by another preacher, and that preacher would be Al Sharpton.
All you want in life is people that matter to you to say you did all right. And more important, that you can look in the mirror and say you did all right.
Thank you, Rev. Thanks for that introduction. Look, we've known each other for a long time. I'm grateful not only for your leadership and partnership, but quite frankly, more importantly, for your friendship. And thanks to all of you, members of our nation's most important civil rights organization.
You have been, over all of your years, such an extraordinary leader. You are a voice of truth, a voice of conscience, a voice of practicality around what we must address and what we can do. And I thank you so much for your friendship.
I remember that most of the youth around Al's age He was about 12. Wanted to be like Connie Hawkins, a great basketball player, legend. Earl the Pearl, Clyde Frazier. Al wanted to be like Adam Powell, a powerful preacher with a social justice gospel. He was very close to, at that time, to Reverend William Augustus Jones, powerful preacher and social justice advocate, and Reverend Gardner Taylor State right down the street, and Bishop Washington, whose church he came from, and Reverend Sandy Ray. He wanted to be like these giant preachers. He wanted them to have the edge, however, of the King's social justice dimension. He wanted to be like them, now he's one of them. Perhaps taller than most of them because of the risks he has taken and the reward God has given him with his gift. I remember so well that I first escorted him to jail. He was around 13 years old, with the jail fighting the ANP. He was in the lineage of our struggle. He grew up in it. We didn't just see him on TV one night. He didn't happen. He came bottom up, not top down.
That's when Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, came here, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who was pastor here at Ethiopian Coptic Cross. That was my first year on Civil Rights and Politics.
As far as I know here, you're in trouble, where it says about 30% are unemployed. That's why I'm working hard to get this surplus food here. Some of you say to me, well, I'm not like you. I'm not a congressman. I haven't got education, I haven't got work, but you're a human being. And you know what you've got? You've got in your hands the power to use your vote and to use even those few cents you get from welfare to spend them only where you want to spend them.
Shop at Costco. Shop at Costco. Shop at Costco. Shop at Costco. Shop at Costco.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join. Take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement. As I was sitting at my desk doing the radio show, I thought about during one of the commercials. I keep right behind my desk a picture. This photo is Frederica Washington, Bishop Washington's daughter, who I grew up under. Ronnie Dyson, who became a Broadway star of hair, grew up in church with us. And me as a minister doing a Tom Thumb wedding. We used to have Tom Thumb weddings for the kids, teaching us how to have a wedding and to be married. And I was the preacher. I was about 9 years old in this picture. I was already been preaching since I was 4. I keep things around me like that, reminding me of my journey. You have the habit of looking at things to see how far you've come where you started. I was a boy preacher here. Both Frederica and Ronnie have died, and I'm still preaching, I'm still here. I thank God I don't take any day for granted, nor do I take me starting early for granted. Don't take your life for granted. Remember it, chart it, and be grateful for it. You're live. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. I'm your host, Reverend Sharpton, and we're back. 1-877-532-5797. Dominique Sharpton sitting in for me most of the show today. I was late because we met this morning with some of the civil rights, we call them legacy groups, NAACP head, Urban League head, Mark Morial, and I and others, with Google around DEI. And then I went and was part of the memorial service at St. Patrick's Cathedral for Pope Francis. And I don't agree with the Pope on everything, but I did want to give my respects because he did stand up around the Ukraine invasion and other things, and I gave respect. I will not be going to the funeral. I didn't go to John Lewis's funeral. I just don't go to funerals just to be going to funerals, but I did come by and give my respects. Let me say by way of announcements, don't forget every Saturday and Sunday, watch Politics Nation with Al Sharpton live at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on MSNBC. And this past weekend, Easter weekend, we had on everyone from Congressman Quaice and Fume to Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We get the experts, and I keep emphasizing, we had the head of the Black Museum, African American Museums, who now has been targeted by the Trump administration. And so watch it. You never know who I'm going to have on. I work hard on getting people on, not just people that like to just talk and be commentators, but people in the middle of what's going on and can give us some real direction. So you should watch it every Saturday and Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And I want to thank you all that watched over the weekend. We had top rating. We got more viewers this Easter weekend on Politics Nation than CNN. So y'all are supporting us, and as long as you do, we can support getting the word out. Let me also tell all of you that are in the New York area or visiting to make sure you come Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. to the House of Justice at 145th Street and Lenox Avenue in the village of Harlem. I'll be there this Saturday. We're following up all of these meetings with companies, what we're going to do. Pepsi met within the first 21 days, but we still need to see what firm commitments they're making. And we have supported what's going on with Target. I know their move is in Atlanta. We're following that up, see where that goes, and then we're going to deal with them nationally. And like I said, we met with Google this morning. I am doing what we said we were going to do at the convention. First one we said we gave 3 weeks to meet was Pepsi. They did come to the table. I do not believe, but coming to the table doesn't mean we eat. Now we at the table, now what's on the menu, and we've laid out what we wanted. I don't believe in just making noise to make noise. I don't believe in marching and picketing to just do it. I believe we must do that towards some stated goals and gauge whether or not our tactics are working. Some people make a lot of noise and can't even get a meeting with the forces that we're dealing with. We're trying to get something done. We're not just trying to get some likes on social media. So, yes, I don't mind putting the pressure on. That's what I've done all my life. But pressure to lead to progress, not just pressure for pressure's sake. If you can get them to the table, then you keep the pressure on specifics around the table. But many groups can't even get them to the table because we're so interested in showboating that we're not in advancing. And I'm very clear with these companies. I give you a certain amount of time to meet, then I tell you in the meeting you've got a certain amount of time to come up with something, or we're going to hit the streets. And we've done this with Bill Ackman. We're in our 67th week of picketing him every Thursday. And why y'all picketing him? He's just a hedge fund guy. Because it has set a climate with other companies that, wait a minute, they will jump on you. So we got on Bill Ackman the first week that they came out against DEI. Some people are coming in now. We've been on this. And I said then we had to go at corporations. So we have been on it. All of it will culminate. All of it will culminate on August 28th, the National March here in New York and Wall Street, where we're setting the corporate world on notice. Those that we have met with by that time, those of the we may be boycotting by that time, those that we are not going to let them get a free ride in our community. And people that say, yeah, I'd like to help organize, but I don't know what to say, all you have to do is sign up at www.nationalactionnetwork.net, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. And every Friday, I will send you out a paragraph or two of what you should say to get people to the march. We're going to take some calls, and then I'm going to throw it back to Dominique. One of the situations we're dealing with is there's another executive order coming down today from President Trump. So I'm going to do a press conference with that, and then I'll be back to end the show. But let me see if I could take one or two calls. Let me go to Terrence in Atlanta, Georgia. Terrence, you're keeping it real with Al Sharpton. Is Terrence there?
How you doing, Real?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I got a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Where do you think we will be in the next 4 years after the Trump administration?
Where do I think we'll be? I think, and thank you for your call, I think we'll be where we organize and make ourselves be. I think that we can have a majority of the House, which would bring Hakeem Jeffries the Speaker, which means we could then advance the bills we want to go forward. We can put witnesses in front of subcommittees or committees in the House. I think we could even have a shot at the Senate. And I think we can have a Democratic president, but it must be the right Democratic president. And I think then we'd have to, and you said 4 years, restore some of the damage done by these 4 years. We'd have to deal with the tariffs. We'd have to deal with him closing Civil Rights Bureau in the Department of Justice and in the Department of Education. 4 years, we should be midway rebuilding what the Trump years took away.
I understand. Now, I got one more question for you. How are you a minister, but you support gay rights and marriage?
Because I support people's right to do whatever it is they're doing, whether I consider it right, wrong, biblical or not. There's nowhere in the scriptures that tells you or me that we have the right to force people to do things. We convert people, we don't force them. If you start building a society where people can force their way on you or me, then we make it where it's fair if it reverses on us. The minute I tell people about lifestyles that you may consider wrong, that's your right. But to make it law, then they have the right, if they take power, to say you ain't got the right to go to church. You ain't got the right to serve God. You can't open up a society and call it a democracy and you're going to force people to believe it our way. I'm a Baptist, so it's against the. I don't believe you should be a Methodist. You can't conduct stuff like that. And the second reason is the first LGBTQ or gays I met was in the church. So it's time for us to quit being hypocritical about that. Gay is not nothing new to us. We make judgments because we believe in our religious beliefs. We do not make laws because of that. Thank you for your call. Let me take a break. I'm going to throw it to Dominique. We'll be right back. After this, Dominique's going to take it for a while, and I'll be right back after I deal with this executive order press conference. Ain't it good to have an oldest daughter that can do radio just almost as good as her daddy? Don't tell her she does it well. Don't tell her that now, because I'm coming back. And if you tell her that, I ain't going to ever answer your call no more. No, I'm only kidding. Dominique Sharpton will be here in a minute after this break. Keeping it real. Sharpton. Be right back. Understand what faith is.
Reverend Sharpton.
I'm a minister. Faith in the Bible is faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things unseen. If you could figure it out, if you have a guaranteed result, if you have a planned strategic course that won't fail, that's not faith. Faith is when you can't figure it out, but you know it's right, and you're going to do it anyhow. Even if you risk losing, even if you risk ridicule, that's faith. And that is what has been the basis of my activism, is faith. That I believe if you do what's right, it will end up right. So, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. My mother was from Dothan, Alabama. Father was from somewhere near Daytona Beach, Florida. Wabassin, I think was the name of the town. They grew up in rigid segregation. They couldn't vote, had to sit in the back of the bus. They came north as part of the migration, thinking they'd find a better way up north. They didn't know each other, of course, met in New York, got married, had 2 kids. I was the youngest kid. Their youngest son lived to be one that sat on the stage when the first black president was elected. To go in one generation, from them not being able to vote, till 2 generations later, their son is working with President Obama, gives me faith. Because they could have said in Alabama, this will never change. It did. It did because people didn't accept it. And just as I told my mother, if I was an angel and had flown down to Dothan, Alabama in 1950 or whatever year she moved north, and told her there's going to be a black president one day, she would say I was crazy. You got to be able to see what's not apparently there and make it happen.
I'm Connor Webb. I'm the Speakers Director of the Yale College Democrats. We are so fortunate to have Reverend Sharpton here to join us this evening in New Haven to talk about the cruelty and the iniquity that we have seen celebrated under the second Trump administration, what we're meant to do about it as journalists and as press professionals and as citizens. So we were just so grateful to have him this evening.
One year ago and change, 67 weeks ago, we started marching every Thursday, am I right, on the offices of Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman was the architect of ending DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. He started it. I want to give a little history because a lot of people get Negroitis and get confusion. I don't even mind your ego, everybody need one, but you don't have to become contrary and duplicitous. We got to have integrity even among those with ego. So we started when they first came out against DEI. Now Ackman and them started it going to Harvard University, forcing out the first black woman and first black president of Harvard. We went to his office and been going 67 weeks. I went first 10, 12 weeks. And this brother, stand up, Reverend Ron McHenry, coordinator House of Justice. This brother has been there every week. Many of you here in the audience have marched every week. So we didn't just get in this, we were in it the day they came at Claudine got. Last year's convention, we dealt with DEI. This year we said that we're going at these corporations that had come out against DEI. Many of you, most of y'all I'm looking at was at the convention. And we hit Pepsi. Pepsi called and said, all right, we we 8-9 days in, we agreed to meet. And we went to Purchase, New York. Chairman of our board, Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, and Carol Wallace, who's a special advisor to us on finance, and laid out to them that one, we don't care what you call it, DEI, IED. Y'all are gonna keep your commitments in terms of the black community. And that means we don't want special privilege, but we do not want to be specially excluded. This is not about we don't want merit. We feel if our people are at the table, we can beat anybody on merit in many cases. So we want from employment to your board, to how you deal with marketing, to who does your financial investment. We want to go across the board with that. Otherwise, if you don't want to deal with the question of diversity in how you do your business, then don't deal with diversity in your consumer base, because you don't believe in diversity. So we just will try to remove all the dollars we can from buying your stuff. In fact, I told the chairman, met with the chairman of the board, met with the CEO. I said, in fact, I learned that not from growing up in civil rights, I learned that from Donald Trump. I said, what do you mean? I said, Donald Trump says he's gonna redo tariffs, that if he doesn't get what he wants for the country, they were gonna raise the tariffs. I'm doing the black tariff reverse. If we don't get what we want, I mean, y'all can't be for Trump and tariff and not be for us in the African American community with a tariff.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join, take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement.
You're live.
Keeping it real. Keeping it real. I'm Dominique Sharpton, Reverend Sharpton's eldest daughter. Sitting in for the Rev momentarily. Rev is stepping away from keeping it real, but we're live. Keeping it real. You can join in on the conversation by calling us today at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. 5797. Rev was talking about before he left, of course, some of the things that we are dealing with and discussing. He's stepping away to, of course, deal with, the further conversation that we're having around keeping DEI alive. He and a few other legacy civil rights leaders met this morning with Google. And he was telling us a little bit about that meeting and what's going on as we are, of course, preparing to march on Wall Street on August the 28th to really call the attention and put on national notice how corporations are rolling back on DEI measures and how we, as a people, will continue to not only hold them accountable for their actions and the policies that they are trying to bestow upon us, but we, the people, will remain actively involved to fight for the progress and change that we wish to see. And so all roads are leading, of course, to New York City, August the 28th, as we will be marching on Wall Street. And Reverend Sharpton and others will, of course, keep us abreast in terms of how these meetings are happening and progressing in terms of corporations coming to the table with us to talk about not only strategies, but talk about provisions and talk about solutions, but also to take that a step further, we will will be about what we are demanding or what we're bringing to the table, what we're asking for. And certainly we believe that the liberties of our people are not something that we should have to demand or should have to continue to fight for and continue to stand for and continue to organize and mobilize for. But we know that our liberties are dear to us, and no one can fight better for us than us. We're taking your calls across the country. As I mentioned, you can join in on the conversation by calling us today at 1-877-532-5797. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk with Rachel. Rachel is listening to us from Brooklyn in New York. Rachel, you're keeping it real. Good afternoon. Rachel, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're keeping it real. You're online.
Hi, Dominique. How
Hey.
are you? Yes, Dominique, you and I met when you spoke at the hospital when the little girl got shot accidentally.
Oh, my goodness. What a tragedy.
And
Oh,
then
my
we-
gosh.
Yeah, and then we spoke again at Jordan Neely at Daniel Penny's trial on
Yes.
the 13th floor, I believe.
Yes, yes.
So, Dominique, the reason I'm calling you today is I am so glad that you and I are speaking because I think the time has come for us to recognize our own humanity and to force America to recognize and respect our humanity. I mean, this marching, it has to come to an end. I can't keep fighting. I'm tired. I'm human, and I just want to live and be. And the reason I called today is because there was a man in Crown Heights, a black man in Crown Heights in a wheelchair. He was walking his dogs. And Crown Heights is little Caribbean city. It's little, it's Jewish and the Caribbeans and the blacks, right? So he's supposedly, but we caught the guy, the Jewish man, grabbing the black man out of the wheelchair and throwing him to the ground and then picking up an object and hitting him several times.
Oh, my goodness.
It was a neighbor that heard his call, and thank God she filmed it because, you know, the videos don't lie. And she filmed it, and this hasn't taken off the way it's supposed to. I spoke on Kingston Avenue and Eastern Parkway, and I said, this has to stop. We have to call for an end to this hatred that America has, that these people have against black men. Our black men can't keep being their targets for their bullets and their knees and their disrespect. Enough is enough is enough. And the jails can't just be for black men. This Jewish man took it upon himself to yank this disabled man out of the wheelchair, throw him to the ground, and then proceeded to hit him with an object several times. Now, had a black man done that to a Jewish man, what would the outcome have been? That black man would have still been in jail. This Jewish man is at home living his best life with his family. Witness testified today. And at some point, if we as a race, the black people, if we're not tired, George Zimmerman disrespected us. He wasn't even a police officer. He was a civilian, as was Daniel Penny. He choked Jordan Neely on the train. He was acquitted. He was invited to the White House by T.J. Vance for a football game, a VIP football game. So what was he saying? What was Vice President then-elect saying to Daniel Penny? Good job for killing that nigga? What else could it have been? And when are we going to say enough is enough? They have Grandmaster Jay in jail right now. Grandmaster Jay, John Fitzgerald Johnson, he started the NFAC. I'll let everyone look at it. NFAC. I'm not going to say it on air. Okay. N like Nancy, F like Frank, A like Apple, C like Charles. He started that because he thought it was time that black people got armed and started protecting themselves. Because how many times are we going to keep marching for justice? We sound like idiots now because no other race is walking down the street begging and crying for justice. When Malcolm X said, any man that puts his hands on you, do your best to send him to the cemetery, he was right. Because at some point, if someone keeps kicking your ass, you got to stand up for yourself.
Rachel
and
from Brooklyn.
We do that, we're going to keep crying, yes.
You sound like a true Brooklynite, I have to say, Rachel. But thank you so much for your call. I want to get more information on that incident because I feel that, and also, you know, as we know and look through even the history of National Action Network and what Reverend Sharpton has been doing, you know, we've been through marching through Crown Heights. We know, you know, in terms of how, you know, the bias and racism racism is prevalent, in that area. And that was, 30 years ago. But we still understand that people are being crippled and people are being brought to their knees just by being in certain communities that they feel other people feel they shouldn't be in, things like that. I also feel that, and you said a lot, sister, in a few moments, but I also feel like, we are tired. Yes, we are as a people tired. We're tired of having to stand up for ourselves and to fight for ourselves. But I feel like we need more of us together to come together to do this. And I do believe in marching. I do believe that marching still has very high, significant relevance because I feel like it brings that unification together and it exposes and amplifies the visibility of our unification. And I feel that when people see a bunch of people joining together, doing something, standing up for ourselves and fighting for a cause that's bigger than us, I believe that people pay attention to that. And when I say people, I mean those that are trying to oppress us. There is no bigger statement than seeing how the marches on Washington and how the marches on Wall Street, we led a silent march down Fifth Avenue a few years ago when we were talking about how Black people were being stopped and frisked when they were shopping on Fifth Avenue. And so you want us to spend our dollars and you want us to support your businesses, but you don't want to protect us and you don't want to acknowledge the fact that racism exists and we are being targeted and profiled on a daily basis, and that needs to stop. So I do believe that marching is still relevant. Marching is still something that we must do in order to amplify our causes, in order to amplify our presence of the collective. But I also feel like we have to do a lot more to stay actively involved, and that's speaking up for that brother who was attacked, in Crown Heights. That means speaking up for the Jordan Neelys and those who are being oppressed and being targeted and being discriminated against. We must come to their aid, and that is coming to our aid. And so I feel like these actions that we are mobilizing and organizing, I think they go hand in hand. And I think that in order for us to really fight the greater powers that we are having to come up against and deal with, Reverend Sharpton was talking about, someone asked him before the last break, well, where do you see our country in 4 years? Well, we've got a lot of work to do if we want to survive, not only survive the 4 years, but if we want to thrive coming out in the next 4 years in terms of everything that we are seeing that's happening to us on a national scale. And so I believe that, yes, we must keep on marching, but yes, we must also keep standing for the Jordan Neelys of the world, who we know that we believe in our children, we believe in our future, and we believe in the success of our people. And so we've got to continue to do what we can, all that we can, in order to make progress a reality for us. But thank you so much for your call, sister, and keep up the great work. Keep fighting the great fight. I look forward to continuing to join you, to continuing to meet up with you, to continuing to work together, because I believe that's what we need in this moment in order to really fight for the progress we want to see. Thank you so much for your call. Let's go to Pam. Pam is listening to us in Chicago on WVOM. Pam, you're keeping it real. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dominique, and it's so good to hear you. And I almost have to say you are doing a great job, or even maybe better than Reverend Al Sharpton.
We don't want to say that. That's a lie. That's a big statement to make, but I appreciate being here and being able to share my voice. So I appreciate that. Thank you, sister, for that.
That's okay. I appreciate your voice, and I'm just having some fun with you. But I do enjoy when you're on the airway, Dominique. Let me just say to Rachel, I feel you, girl. I feel you exactly. And so we're going to have to determine what we want to do. But when I initially called, I was thinking about we're coming out of Holy Week and then Easter. And then, Dominique, I just thought there are too many religious leaders, pastors, rabbis, imams, whatever, priests, who are not saying enough about what this administration is doing. And if you are saying that you, believe in God and that you are a follower, then you have to listen to his teachings. And I'm saying that across religion. So I need the religious community to do more and to say more and to stand up. Now, I'm going to say specifically to the Jewish community, there are many CEOs who are Jewish of these companies who are pulling back on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. What I would ask, and I had talked to Reverend Sharpton about this, I said we need to have a meeting with Jewish rabbis and religious leaders, because there is something amiss here, Dominique, about their actions versus their words. And so maybe we can't have that conversation publicly, but I know that Reverend Sharpton and our other leaders can call them to the table privately and ask them, where do you stand and what's going on? Because you have quite a few Jewish people in this sexual abusers administration. And let me be clear, I'm not buying I'm anti-Semitic or anti-anything.
That's right.
I'm holding us accountable.
That's right.
If you are our brethren, you are our ally, then you must behave like it, and your actions must accordingly.
Thank you,
and
Pam.
So that's what I'm asking.
Thank you, Pam. We're going to keep it, leave it there as we're keeping it real. It's Dominique Sharpton. I'm sitting in for the Rev. We're taking your calls across the country. You can join in on the conversation today by calling us at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. And we'll be back with more of Keeping It Real with Sharpton. We'll be right back.
Country, talking to the radio announcers, the church people and the street people, telling them that God has smiled on me. God has smiled on you if you got breath in your body, if He woke you up this morning and started you on your way. But I want to tell you some stories of people that God smiled on. We know the story of Dr. Martin Luther King, how he started way back in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, trying just to get dignity, trying to get respect. And he went all the way to the mountaintop. But he didn't forget about the brothers in the valley. He didn't forget about those trapped in the alley. And I hear Brother Martin King say, God has smiled on me. He's been good to me. Let me tell you, God has smiled on me. It's been so good to me. Then I see as Dr. King went on, another man stepping to the forefront by the name of John F. Kennedy, who rose up and said, let's not stand back. Let's not wait for a handout. Let's wait for a way out. He said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He said, don't us gravel and don't us moan, because God done smile on us. Let me say it. God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Let me say it. And I saw a man come out. They call him the King of Soul, James Brown. And James Brown said, Reverend, don't you worry. I started out as a shoe shine boy. I started out as a convict. I started out uneducated. and all over the world they can hear my voice. But Reverend, don't you frown, don't you bow your head. Tell them what you told me, Brother Brown. God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Yeah. He has set me free. God smiled on me. You've been so good to me. Then I went home and I told my mother what Brown told me. And she said, son, even though we don't have much, we don't need relief. All we need is belief. And she said, he didn't tell you no lie, because the Lord will take care of you. God sits high, but he looks down low. And every time you get discouraged, every time you're burning down, all you have to do is think of the things that God made a way for you and look toward the heavens. Lift your eyes to the hills and say, God, 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 don't smile on me. Now then, the God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God has smiled on me. That has been so good to me. Yes, he has. I say, God smile on me. He has set me free. And I know all over the country, smile on me. We need jobs. We need a way to make it. We need help. We need jobs. We need a way to make some money to feed our families and raise our bread. We need a way to survive, so we don't need crime as a survival kit. We just need a little bit. But don't give the hope up. Don't lose the faith, because God will smile on you. God will give you the strength. God will make a way for you. Adam Great Power said, keep the faith. Keep the faith, baby. I hear Robert Kennedy saying that it's not the dream of, but it's the dream that'll live on forever. Just know that God will smile on you. Dr. King had a dream. Dr. King said, I went to the mountaintop, but I didn't stop there. I looked over and saw the promised land. I hear Brother Malcolm saying, don't sit on the stoop. Stand up and be a man. Respect yourself. Be somebody. Then I hear the brothers in the Hispanic community say, I'm going to stand up and be a man. I'm going to do the best I can. I had a reaper say, I don't care what time you come home, but just give me some respect when you get there. Lord, now God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God smiled on me. You've been so good to me. Sit down. And as we move on in history, let us remember that if we look to God, God has the answer to all of our problems. God is still the same God it was years ago, and we can still make it. We can still hold on like Frederick Douglass did. We can still keep him on like Martin Luther King did. We can still ride on the way everyone that made it did. They didn't have much, but they had a whole lot of faith. They didn't have money, but they had a lot of determination. We know that God will look out for his children, that God will make a way out of no way. If you just keep the faith and refuse to lose, and God will make a way, because God's children don't have color. God's children just have will. And I can still hear somewhere in my mind James Brown say, God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Let me say that. Yeah, Lord. Yeah, Lord. Yeah, Lord.
If you understand what faith is, you know, I'm a minister. Faith in the Bible is faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things unseen. If you could figure it out, if you have a guaranteed result, if you have a planned strategic course that won't fail, that's not faith. Faith is when you can't figure it out, but you know it's right, and you're going to do it anyhow, even if you risk losing. Even if you risk ridicule, that's faith. And that is what has been the basis of my activism, is faith. That I believe if you do what's right, it will end up right. So I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. My mother was from Dothan, Alabama. Father was from somewhere near Daytona Beach, Florida. Wabasset, I think was the name of the town. They grew up in rigid segregation. They couldn't vote, had to sit in the back of the bus. They came north as part of the migration, thinking they'd find a better way up north. They didn't know each other, of course, met in New York, got married, had 2 kids. I was the youngest kid. Their youngest son lived to be one that sat on the stage when the first black president was elected. To go in one generation, from them not being able to vote, till 2 generations later, their son is working with President Obama, gives me faith. Because they could have said in Alabama, this will never change. It did. It did because people didn't accept it. And just as I told my mother, if I was an angel and had flown down to Dothan, Alabama in 1950 or whatever year she moved north, and told her there's going to be a black president one day, she would say I was crazy. You got to be able to see what's not apparently there and make it happen.
I'm Connor Webb. I'm the Speakers Director of the Yale College Democrats. We are so fortunate to have Reverend Sharpton here to join us this evening in New Haven to talk about the cruelty and the iniquity that we have seen celebrated under the second Trump administration, what we're meant to do about it as journalists and as press affiliate professionals and as citizens. So we were just so grateful to have him this evening.
Keeping it real. I'm Dominique Sharpton, Reverend Sharpton's eldest daughter. I'm sitting in for the Rev. We're taking your calls across the country. You can join in on the conversation today by calling us at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. Rev will be joining us, coming back momentarily with us, but we're taking your calls across the country and got a lot to talk about. Certainly, we know that Rev was talking earlier about how him and some of the civil rights leaders, the legacy organizations like NAACP and National Urban League and others met with Google this morning. And certainly we know that Rev and others have also met with Target and many other corporations, Walmart and others, as we are trying to really deal with how we are collectively going to organize around how corporations are dealing with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And certainly we know that we are galvanizing and mobilizing for a big march down Wall Street on August the 28th to really put these corporations not only on notice, but to put the world, including the administration that we are dealing with right now, on notice that we as a collective will not be moved. We as a collective will continue to stand for the liberations of our people. And we as a collective will continue to hold those accountable who are trying to dismay us, trying to suppress us, trying to alleviate us from the access and opportunities that we know we deserve, and ultimately will continue to fight for and demand from others. As I mentioned, we're taking your calls across the country. You can join in on the conversation by calling us at 1-877-532-5797. And for more information on how you can join us in New York City on August the 28th, make sure you go to our website at nationalactionnetwork.net and get all the information you need to join us, to partner with us, to organize a bus, to organize your people. Reverend Sharpton mentioned on this broadcast and on this platform that we are going to be rolling out certain action agendas leading up to the march, including talking points, literal talking points, so that you can continue having the necessary conversations with people in your community, because we want everyone on the same page and we want everyone working together to really make this dynamic impact that we know that we can do as a collective. Yes? All right, let's go back to the phones and let's talk with Carolyn. Carolyn is listening to us from Alabama, the home of my grandmama, both of my grandmothers from Alabama. You're keeping it real, Carolyn. Good afternoon.
That's great. Good afternoon, Dominique. Thank you for taking my call. The reason I'm calling today, Dominique, is that the disrespect is real, but at the same time, the fight and resistance is real. Mm-hmm. I am a graduate of the University of Alabama.
All right.
I learned this morning that Donald J. Trump is to give a commencement speech at the University of Alabama on May the 3rd.
Lord.
Well, he can barely put two sentences together. His vocabulary is very limited. So my question is, has the University of Alabama gone full MAGA? We know, as residents of the state and across the country, that Wallace, as a racist, stood in the schoolhouse door in 1963, a stain on the state and the country. And here we go again in 2025, the equivalent of Wallace standing in the schoolhouse door. Trump, a racist, giving a commencement speech at Alabama, another stain on the country and the state. Now, is there no shame anywhere when it comes to Donald Trump? The school's popularity, the school's wealth has been built on the back of black athletes for generations. As Reverend Larry used to say when we were growing up as children, we've come too far, marched too long, and bled too profusely for people to turn back the clock on our progress and justice.
That's right.
Reverend Al, Dominique, they're trying to turn back the clock every day. So my question and inquiry to you, do you know if there's any planned organized protests for Donald Trump's speech in Tuscaloosa? Because this is intentional. The University of Alabama knows better. They have a huge black population, and the state has fought for justice for the country and for the nation for years, including the 1955 bus boycott. So this is a real problem.
Well, I think that, and thank you so much for raising this and for bringing this to our awareness on this platform. I also feel, it's interesting to me as we are hearing and learning about all these rollbacks, all that the Trump administration has been doing to target HBCUs, to target universities, even prestigious Ivy League universities like Harvard, who's having an issue now with dealing with, financial cuts and things that they are being threatened with. And it behooves me that here we are seeing University of Alabama saying, no, we stand strong with the administration. In fact, the President of the United States will be speaking as a commencement speaker at the university. I think it goes to show you, it's just whose side they're on. And I think that we are going to continue to see lots of these slaps in the faces, as you call it, in terms of how institutions are really standing up and stepping out. Someone mentioned before about the churches and how, many of the pastors are being silent in terms of what we are dealing with across the landscape of what this administration is doing to people, especially people of color, especially those who are in the most vulnerable communities. And I feel like this is another thing that we are seeing. You're going to see people literally standing with the opposition, standing with those who are literally trying to, as you say, roll back the times on us. You're going to see people standing up in their defense and standing up in support because that's the side that they choose. And so we can't be dismayed in terms of, okay, you made your choice. Now we have to make ours. And I think, as you said earlier, the resistance only needs to strengthen because we know that we are dealing with that type of magnitude of issues. It's not that, and we've seen these issues before. We've dealt with, issues of education inequality and healthcare and justice reform, and we're dealing with mass incarceration. We've seen these issues, and we've been fighting and working towards, eradicating those issues. And we know that it's not necessarily a sprint in terms of how we eradicate these issues, but it's more so a marathon. And as we are continuing to develop and mobilize and really deal with on the day-to-day basis what we are facing, I think it is only prevalent to see and acknowledge the fact that the people of the University of Alabama and others are going to stand up in support of the opposition because that's the side that they choose. So what side are we going to choose is the question.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your call. I got to leave it there. We got other callers calling in, but thank you for keeping it real, Carolyn, and thank you for your call. Let's go to Andre J., my brother listening to us from Chicago on WVON. Andre J., you're keeping it real. Good afternoon.
Hey, Miss Dominique, belated happy Easter to you and all the sweet eggs and cookies that come along with it. How you doing?
Same to you. Thank you. I'm doing well.
Look, I was sitting back listening to the show today, and this is one of them days that I was just going to chill out, right? But then somebody called and rattled my feathers. So I say, well, let me call because I don't want to go to sleep tonight with my feathers still being rattled. I want them to settle down tonight when I get ready to go sleep. So look here, Dominique, these people ain't went through nothing. That lady that called and say she tired of marching, she ain't went through nothing. What if Dr. King got tired of marching? Where would she be at? What if John Lewis got tired, didn't want to go across the Edmund Pettus Bridge? Where would she be at? What if the woman's suffrage movement had got tired? She wouldn't even have the right to vote. What if Reverend Sharpton got tired of taking her phone calls? Who would she talk to? So when she stood up and go to talk about she tired of marching, you better change your way of thinking, because if everybody else got tired in your behalf, you wouldn't be where you at now. That she needs to rethink that. So no, don't get tired. You get tired, just take a break. Just don't quit. Just take a break.
But I think it's important, Brother Andre J., and we know that you are, you one of the core. We got some core activists who are unapologetic in their stance and in their activity. And we also know that we got people, like I said, we got to work on the collective and strengthening our collective. And so we have to address the fact that there are some of our people who don't necessarily understand why we continue to fight and why we continue to, strategize and why we continue to mobilize in the capacity that we have to do so. And we've got to continue to enlighten our brothers and sisters and really acknowledge the fact that, people are angry and they have feelings and we have emotions that we need to tap into and shouldn't ignore. But we've got to continue to press forward. And I feel like these strategies are those that we need to reignite, re-enlighten, and just inform our brothers and sisters of what we are dealing with and the importance of us coming together in order to really fight for that change. I'm going to leave it there, Andre J. Love you much, brother. Thank you for your call. It's Dominique Sharpton. I'm sitting in for the Rev. We're taking your calls across the country. You, too, can join in on the conversation today by calling us at 1-877-532-5797. We'll be back with more of Keeping It Real with Sharpton. We'll be right back.
When I got off radio today, I was talking here in the office. Things had slowed down a little bit. We've been speeding all day on Good Friday. Had to preach, had to do Morning Joe. So I was talking to my youngest daughter, Ashley, and she was saying, Dad, you got to hear this sermon that Reverend Keon Henderson preached at Bishop T.D. Jakes' church. She said, brought tears to her eyes, asking the right question. And I said, really? So in the middle of her telling me, I got him on the phone and let her tell him and talked about young, dynamic preacher, his heart is right, activity is right. He's in a different vein of ministry to me. He's not the marching, picketing kind, but he speaks truth to power. And it means a lot for sometimes people that they don't think is watching you, for you to let them hear from you. And I know how it means to me when I think, wow, they watch what I'm doing. So that's why I called Keon Henderson a great preacher and his wife, great ministry. And again, they ain't civil rights leaders, but they certainly faith leaders of this coming generation, and they stand alone. I'm going to let you hear some of my conversation. I told them that I was going to tape some of the conversation.
He ain't done 1,000 times.
You all right? Everything good?
Yeah, everything's good. What is crazy is literally last night I preached in Chicago, and the first 15 minutes of the conversation was about you. Just yesterday.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we were. You know how you sit at the table, everybody started going to the Instagram, and I saw that you had the meeting with the CEO of Target. So they was telling me what did I think. I said, let me tell you what I think. I think this man is the smartest man on earth because he made sure not to smile. But if he let him smile, but he brought his game face, he gonna get whatever he trying to get done. He gonna get done.
Well, I'm gonna say you said I'm gonna put that on Instagram. He filming us. I'm gonna put that out there. And I talked to my brother about this sermon he preached. Everybody needs to watch Keon's sermon at Father's house. It touched Ashley's heart. So I called him, and he just happened to commend me on what we're doing with targeted others. But he's a good brother. I just wanted to holler at you.
Love you so much.
All right, give my regards to your wife.
All right, take care.
We gotta stop this competition. We gotta stop trying to outdo each other. The truth is, you are graced for a lane that I'm not even qualified to run in. I can't beat you doing you. I step out of this pulpit and come to your house, I lose because I'm not anointed for that house. You are graced for the lane you're in. And stop watering yourself down because people can't handle you at 100 proof. You got to be who you are on every day of the week. And ooh, Lord Jesus, let me stop.
I had a thought this morning that I want to share with you about mentorship. I am able to do a lot of what I do because I had great mentors, but there are correct ways and incorrect ways to mentor people, in my opinion. I was mentored as a boy preacher by Bishop F.D. Washington, one of the great Pentecostal preachers of his time. Then Reverend William Jones, who became my pastor after Bishop Washington died, who was unquestionably in the top 5 black church ministers, theologians. Reverend Jesse Jackson, who I started my activism under his leadership, he and Reverend Jones. And I learned politics directly as a youth director from Shirley Chisholm. So even though I didn't finish college, I had the most unique education in the world from being exposed to giants. But the one thing I learned is as I grew older and people started coming younger than me and wanted me to teach and mentor them, the magic of the mentors I had is they did not want me to be their clone. They wanted me to learn things from them and use my own gifts and talent in my own unique way and let me do things on my own, because they knew that if I flopped in some things, it would teach me for the other things. They'll come and help me once I was down, but they were not going to have me avoid being down. And they were not going to impose themselves on me. Why am I saying that? Because too many mentors want clones, and too many mentees want their mentors to put them on a pedestal. Oh, so-and-so didn't do this for me. Oh, so-and-so didn't open doors for me. If they gotta open doors for you, it may mean that they knew you weren't ready to go through those doors. Their job is to prepare you. Your job is to develop your own skills, your own unique ways. And I don't care if it's my daughters, who both have come into their own, or anyone else. I'm not a talent agent. I did not form National Action Network to give people their step up. I formed it to fight for justice for everybody. If talented people get in, it's my job to invest and give them a platform. It's their job to get on the platform and perform and show their ability. Sitting with me today in the office as I talk about it is one of my mentees, Reverend Stephen Marshall. Now, Stephen, you just came around us when you were how old?
11 years old.
11 years old. You just turned 40 and now you're called to the ministry?
Yes, sir.
And what do you do in National Action Network?
I formulate policies, lead in various regions, but most importantly, I senior advisor to you on all things from social justice strategies, politics, intergovernmental affairs, you name it, community organizing, all of that stuff.
And I could go through scores of others. My daughter started Huddle. They got Huddles now, which is for young people to meet once a week all over the country. I just saw the video from the Las Vegas National Action Network chapter. Now, when you decided to preach, did I ever tell you to become a preacher?
Not one time.
Who called you to preach?
The Lord.
All right. And did I say go to this school or that school?
No, sir.
Did I open this door, that door? Did I tell you be ready when the doors open?
Always be ready and prepared.
And that's what I'm saying. Get you some young people than you that you can help along the way. But don't be their talent agent. Their talent must speak for themselves. And anybody that grumbles with you about so-and-so didn't do something for them, maybe it's because they didn't feel you were ready, or that they felt if they did it, you wouldn't do it on your own. But we all don't live forever. I want the next generation to speak of me, of National Action Network, and others, the way I speak of Reverend Jones and Bishop Washington and Shirley Chisholm and Reverend Jackson. But I just don't want young people to feel that somebody ought to give them the reins of leadership or give them the reins of business or whatever it is you're in. You need to learn from their journey, get the pearls of wisdom from them, but don't have them do for you, because then it means you can't do it for yourself. If you understand what faith is, I'm a minister. Faith in the Bible is faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things unseen. If you could figure it out, if you have a guaranteed result, if you have a planned strategic course that won't fail, that's not faith. Faith is when you can't figure it out, but you know it's right, and you're going to do it anyhow, even if you risk losing. Even if you risk ridicule, that's faith. And that is what has been the basis of my activism, is faith. That I believe if you do what's right, it will end up right. So, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. My mother was from Dothan, Alabama. Father was from somewhere near Daytona Beach, Florida. Wabassin, I think was the name of the town. They grew up in rigid segregation. They couldn't vote, had to sit in the back of the bus. They came north as part of the migration, thinking they'd find a better way up north. They didn't know each other, of course, met in New York, got married, had 2 kids. I was the youngest kid. Their youngest son lived to be one that sat on the stage when the first black president was elected. To go in one generation, from them not being able to vote, till 2 generations later, their son is working with President Obama, gives me faith.
I'm Dominique Sharpton, Reverend Sharpton's eldest daughter. I'm sitting in for the Rev, taking your calls across the country. You can join in on the conversation by calling us at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797. Brother Andre J., I know we were talking with you. I don't know if you were done, so if you hear me and you weren't done, call us back because it's always a pleasure speaking with you, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but we had to take a break. Let's go back to the phones and let's speak with my brother Demetrius, listening to us from Cleveland on WERE. Demetrius, you're keeping it real. Good afternoon.
Hey, thank you, Ms. Sharpton. Good afternoon to you, too. I just want to speak concerning, Donald Trump want to remove Chairman Powell from the head of the Federal Reserve. I believe he overstepping his authority, because the Federal Reserve, in my opinion, should be independent. It shouldn't be used as a tool, for Donald Trump to help soften the effects of the tariffs that he put into effect. Because the reason he wanted to control the Federal Reserve so he can lower the interest rates, because of tariffs going on, cause the prices to go up. But even though he wants to lower the interest rates, what happens is someone else is in office, and they want to raise the interest rates for their own benefits or for the other businesses that they may have control of, or people they are connected with, because the interest rates affect people when they get loans for their homes, when they buy cars, on their credit cards. So that's a lot of control one person to have a president, on the average American living. When they buy their food, they want to fix something around their house with their credit cards. And I believe it should stay independent and not under the whims of one person, the president, because Donald Trump already wanted to control the education. He wanted to control when it comes to immigration, who can come in this country, who cannot leave. You want to control the judiciary. So, this country has to have some independent agencies, so they can counter, what he want to do or any other person in that position. Because this country was formed, for not just one person to have complete control of the government. Because we don't want it to become a dictatorship.
And that's the battle, right, Demetrius? That's the battle. It seems like, we are battling this president in terms of, how lenient he's, gonna get in terms of obtaining total power. I think that's the goal. And it's like we're gonna see, little by little and sometimes more abruptly than normally, things happening in order for him to obtain that. I mean, that seems to be the goal. So it's like, like that sister said, the earlier caller said, the resistance has to intensify, has to grow. We've got to be stronger in terms of how we fight back and how we combat these issues that we're dealing with.
Yeah, that's true. We have to go toe to toe with him because evidently he's not going to let up. He's going to keep doing what he's doing, see what he can get away with, and any slacking part on the resistance, it's just going to embolden him, to keep moving on, to try to, have complete control of the government for his own benefit and for those who are in cahoots with him. So as Americans, American people have to stand up to them, make sure we have a free democracy. Everybody have the access to education. We're around the education, everybody have free to for employment, and those who've been left behind in employment, because we still have a ways to go for equal opportunity. And also people have good medical care, because you don't need Medicaid to be cut, because everyone needs to have access to good medical care, not just generic brand medicine, second rate medical attention.
And be able to afford it. Absolutely.
That's right. People are able to afford it.
That's right.
Because if people even going to the doctors, so some people use their credit cards to go to the doctors when they buy their prescriptions. And like I said, if you have control of the Federal Reserve, he can go up on the interest rates, so there'll be more people have to pay on the credit card bill. So it's essential that we don't get our power to one person. It have to be independent.
That's
Somebody
right.
on the outside looking in, just like the judiciary have to be independent. In the military to a certain extent, because he shouldn't have complete control of the military, even though the president is supposed to be the leader of the military. But at the same time, Congress got to step up, because the Congress, they have a right to have authority of what wars that can be declared. So for him to say what he's going to do to Iran, he's going to do to the other countries that don't agree with him, because his policy toward Israel and so forth. Now he don't have that authority to make any type of threat. It's up to the Congress, and it's up to us to hold the Congress people accountable to what the American people want, with justice for all Americans, and not just have certain people going overseas to fight wars, for business or for certain interests, when it don't benefit all Americans.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sharpton.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your call. And Demetrius, and as we are talking and dealing with, a lot of, I failed to mention this earlier, but as we know, the global economic leaders are gathering, to confront, Trump's New World Order. And we know that, we're dealing with the tariffs, and we're dealing with, how the World Bank president, who was, appointed under President Biden, is starting to navigate tension, of course, with the Trump administration, dealing with, climate priorities and emphasizing job creation. There's a lot of things happening and a lot of conflict, like Brother Demetrius was talking about, in the inner dealings of how, this president is trying to obtain total power. And I feel like, that's another thing, because we're going to start to see, these leaders retaliate. These people are going to, we're not the only ones that are emotionally angry about how things are coming about and how things are happening. We're going to start seeing people, as you said, take this president toe by toe, head on, and dealing with some of the things that he has been bestowing upon us and granting and doing. And so we're going to start seeing a lot of that happening, a lot of turmoil and tension that's happening, in terms of how leaders are starting to communicate with each other because of things like this that's happening. And we have got to really be equipped with our battle and our action agenda to stay the course, to really understand and know what we are trying to accomplish, and to really stick towards what we're trying to do. That's what I'm saying. We've got to continue to organize and mobilize and having these conversations, because we are seeing that the leaders at the top are really, really dealing with a lot as well. I hear that music, so we're going to take a quick break. Thank you for your call, Demetrius. It's Dominique Sharpton sitting in for the Rev, taking your calls across the country, and we'll be back with Reverend Michael A. Walron, as we always are. Join the conversation, 1-877-532-5797. We'll be back with more of Keeping It Real with Sharpton. We'll be back.
It's been a long time coming, but I know
1968, Dr. Martin King was killed in Memphis, Tennessee. And it has been the commitment of National Action Network for always, in the month he was killed, to let them know they killed the dreamer.
I have a dream today.
They can't kill the dreamer.
One year ago and change, 67 weeks ago, we started marching every Thursday, am I right, on the offices of Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman was the architect of ending DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. He started it. I want to give a little history because a lot of people get Negroitis and get confusion. I don't even mind your ego. Everybody need one, but you don't have to become contrary and duplicitous. We got to have integrity even among those with ego. So we started when they first came out against DEI. Now Ackman and them started it going at Harvard University, forcing out the first black woman and first black president of Harvard. We went to his office and been going 67 weeks. I went first 10 to 12 weeks. And this brother, stand up, Reverend Ron McHenry, coordinator House of Justice. This brother has been there every week. Many of you here in the audience have marched every week. So we didn't just get in this. We were in it the day they came at Claudine Guy. Last year's convention, we dealt with DEI. This year, we said that we're going at these corporations that had come out against DEI. Many of you, most of y'all I'm looking at was at the convention. And we hit Pepsi. Pepsi called and said, all right, we 8-9 days in, we agree to meet. And we went, purchased New York. Chairman of our board, Reverend Dr. W. Franklin Richardson, and Carol Wallace, who's a special advisor to us on finance, and laid out to them that one, we don't care what you call it, DEI, IED. Y'all are gonna keep your commitments in terms of the black community. And that means we don't want special privilege, but we do not want to be specially excluded. This is not about we don't want merit. We feel if our people are at the table, we can beat anybody on merit in many cases. So we want from employment to your board, to how you deal with marketing, to who does your financial investment. We want to go across the board with that. Otherwise, if you don't want to deal with the question of diversity in how you do your business, then don't deal with diversity in your consumer base, because you don't believe in diversity. So we just will try to remove all the dollars we can from buying your stuff. In fact, I told the chairman, maybe the chairman of the board, maybe the CEO, I said, in fact, I learned that not from growing up civil rights, I learned that from Donald Trump. I said, what do you mean? I said, Donald Trump said he's gonna redo tariffs, that if he doesn't get what he wants for the country, they were gonna raise the tariff. I'm doing the black tariff reverse. If we don't get what we want, I mean, y'all can't be for Trump and tariff and not be for us in the African American community with a tariff. That's when Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, came to me, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who was pastor here now, at Ethiopian Coptic Cross. That was my first hero on civil rights and politics.
As far as I know here, you're in trouble, where it says about 30% are unemployed. That's why I'm working hard to get this surplus food here. Some of you say to me, well, I'm not like you. I'm not a congressman. I haven't got education. I haven't got work. But you're a human being. And you know what you've got? You've got in your hand the power to use your vote and to use even those few cents you get from welfare.
For the Rev, taking your calls across the country. You can join in on the conversation by calling us at 1-877-532-5797. We're going back to the phones. Got a lot of folks that want to weigh in, and certainly we want to hear from you. As you are listening and as you are tuning in online, make sure you go to the website, www.nationalactionnetwork.net, to sign up for the March on Wall Street, as we will be convening in New York City on August the 28th to bring the country, put the country on notice. We got a lot to deal with. We got to come together and make a huge statement of our collective unity coming together as we are talking about how corporations are trying to dismantle DEI, as we are talking about how this current Trump administration is trying to roll back on many of the gains and many of the things that we have fought so vehemently for to accomplish, trying to roll it back. trying to eliminate practices and eliminate policies and eliminate resources and opportunities for our people. And we've got to come together to stand up against the face of adversity. We've got to stand up against the oppressors. We've got to stand up for ourselves. If we believe in us, we've got to stand up for us. And so we're inviting everyone, as we are commemorating the March on Washington. Many years ago, we stood by the hundreds of thousands to call for jobs, to call for justice in this country. And we know that the fight continues, and we have to continue to fight for us. Let's go back to the phones and let's talk with Brother Allen. Brother Allen, who is listening to us from Baltimore on WOLB. You're keeping it real, Brother Allen. Good afternoon.
How you doing, Sister Dominique? You know how we get into this mess? You know how we got in this mess? No, 90 million people didn't vote. You know, my grandfather would say, well, they had dictators want to be when I was a little boy, but we didn't have the right to vote. Now, 90 million people probably got tired of Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, and look what they into. They about to start voting in 2026, because if you get 293 Congress people, like representatives, and 60 senators, you can file the article of impeachment, and you can impeach Donald Trump. Because if he do a crime, you know what he's going to do at the end of his term? Pardon himself. He's just going to pardon himself. So,
and now, am I mistaken? But wasn't this man impeached twice before? I'm like.
No, but he didn't. No, but right, but he didn't have. Because Nancy Pelosi filed an article of impeachment. You didn't have 60 senators to convict him twice. Yeah, you got to have 60 senators to convict. I'm pretty smart and civic. Let me ask you this right here. Can't pick and choose. You know, a lot of people call your dad and try to put him in the trick bag. Say, why would a minister or man of the cloth stand up for gay rights? He's not standing up for homosexuality. They have the right to run around like we run around, not to be under a dictator. It's just the right to roam the earth. Let me say this right here. You know, Reverend Al said this right here, because I commend him for this. I'm not standing up for Puffy Cone because I got 2 daughters.
That's right.
And I said, but he's black. Now, whether it's Donald Trump and Elon Musk said, just make an example out of this black guy. He was a billionaire. He was in our circle, and sent him to El Salvador and said he's a homegrown criminal. Will we stand up for his due process, his civil rights? So black folks been supporting everybody. We support even the Venezuelans and Latinos, because Kilmar Garcia could be Puffy Cone. Trump is so evil, he might say, I'm going to show you how ruthless I am. He'll send Puffy Cone to do some hard time just because he think he got the power. Then he'll rub it in our face. Then all these people, 90 million people, will go to a concert, but they won't vote. Pretty simple to me. Go out and vote. You won't be in a trick bag.
And that's the thing. Thank you, Alan. That's the thing there. You know, Reverend Sharpton was talking earlier when that brother asked him where I keep going back to that question because I thought it was a great question, and I thought that Rev was spot on with the answer. But where do we see ourselves at the end of these 4 years, Brother Allen? You were talking about it. You see maybe, you know, if Trump, you know, continues to get himself into, you know, some type of trouble, we may see him pardon himself. But we can also look forward to, again, what our work, what we can put in to do in order to really combat and really progress us forward, you know? And so, yeah, we need that Senate. We need to deal with the House and how we are being represented because of how these policies are being mandated. We need that vote. We need to make sure that our policies and things that we know does not work for us does not get passed. And so that is very important. We're going to see a lot of the rollbacks from how we have to deal with, you know, like I said, things that the president is currently doing to roll back everything, you know, with these tariffs and other things that we are going to have to deal with in terms of the after effects of how they greatly will impact us. So we've got a lot to look forward to, but we've got to up the ante in terms of our activism and in terms of what we are doing to really deal with confronting that eye of the tiger. We've got to deal with it. So I think that, as the sister said earlier, you may be tired of marching. You may feel, emotional in terms of, well, how can we, living in today's society, living in America today, how can we justify, or how can we literally understand that these things are happening to us right in our face? How can we understand that? How can we deal with not challenging and dealing with the pain that comes along with what's happening? But I think that we've got to really deal with ourselves. We've got to deal with our mental capacity, and then couple that with our physical capacity to come together and really push for this change. So thank you so much, Alan, for your poignant words and for always keeping it real. Let's go to Woody listening to us in Philly. Woody, you're keeping it real. Good afternoon.
Well, I don't know how much more real it can be than to actually have your daughter fill in the space and be just about as big as you are. I mean, you're a reflection of Reverend Sharpton.
Oh, thank you, Woody.
I love that so much. It's nothing greater than the love a father has for his daughter. So I just wanted to let you know I heard that in Rev's voice, and I hear that in your voice, and it's just a wonderful thing when those connections are made and other people can actually heal it. So see it, and it's a healing force. And I just want you guys to continue to heal the society, because we, as Donald Trump said when he first ran for president, African Americans, what the hell you got to lose? Your schools are all messed up. You can't get money from your banks, and you're being gentrified out of your neighborhoods. That is happening to us right as we speak. So many people that are long-term residents in their homes are being pushed out because of gentrification. I hope there's something Rev can do. I know he's only one man. I'm doing whatever I can do on my end by trying to educate people pertaining to it. So you can do something to help yourself. But gentrification is wiping us out, and all of our history is going to be gone too. So hopefully, Dominique, you'll hear that word and share it with your father as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Woody, and thank you for your call. You know, I spent some time in Philly. I went to Temple University, and so I spent some time in Philly, living on Broad and Susquehanna. So shout out to all those in Philly, and thank you, Brother Woody, for your call and for keeping it real. Jacob, also listening to us from Philly on WURD. You're keeping it real. Good afternoon.
I say good afternoon. Might I say there is a lot of mystique in the name Dominique.
All right.
Who gave you
I like that. JT, make sure you got that soundbite.
Yeah. But yeah, I had to get that in. But who named you, your mother or your father?
Well, it's an interesting story there. I don't know how much time you got. But my mom used to be a big fan of this soap opera that was on in the 80s called Dynasty. They called it Dynasty.
Yes.
And Diane Carroll, whom I'm blessed to have gotten really close with her daughter, but she played this character on Dynasty called Dominique Devereaux. And so my mom was really, really a big fan of the show. And I don't know the correlation of how I became named Dominique, but I think it has a lot to do with Diane Carroll's role in Dynasty, and how much she loved that character, and really what Diane represented, like breaking out with that role and all she brought to the culture and everything that she did for entertainment. So my mom was a big fan, and I think that has a lot to do with me being named Dominique.
And you know, that's the exact art the person that I went to, because I remember that series and the name. That's what I say. There's got so much to it. But look, Rev, I got daughters too, and one of my daughters, she actually goes to Temple now.
Oh, nice.
And she resides at Broad and Columbia. Broad and Cecil B. Moore. So that's right in the neighborhood you stayed. You know?
Yes.
But yeah, but you know what? Having them daughters, Brother Woody just spoke of it. I know Rev wants his daughters to be better than he, because what father don't want his daughters to be better than him?
Well,
right?
That's a lot. That's a lot to look for. That's a lot to live up to.
Yeah, but that's all right. When we pray, we can get. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure Rev got a prayer in his heart for his daughters to go further and do more than him, and ask him about it. I bet you he said, yeah, I ain't a betting man.
Bless his heart.
But, you know, I'm the caller that called about the march. And now, look, Ray Charles can see that when you are senior citizens like myself, well, your marching days are over, right? So you could do something else on the front. Maybe you can sit at the table and be at the end of the march handing out some nice cool water for the young people that march. We all got a spot in this thing.
Yes.
Like you kept mentioning, this battle ain't never over. In Islam, there's I know you heard the word jihad, right?
Yes,
jihad.
yes.
Everybody
Jihad.
was one time was talking about jihad. Islam, jihad ain't nothing but a struggle, right? And all of us have a jihad, right? That's just a struggle that you do what you do. So life is a struggle from beginning to end.
Yes, sir.
So we got to keep, and marching is all we had, but we got more now. But white people marching today, ain't they? All
over.
When we combine our marches, white, black, and everything, boy, we gonna be some marching people, ain't we?
Yes, a dynamic collective is what we need in this moment. Thank you so much, Jacob, for your call. We're going to take a break. It's Dominique Sharpton. I'm sitting in for the Rev. Rev will be joining us back from the break, as well as Reverend Michael Warron. You don't want to miss this hour, and you want to tune in, and you want to call in and join in on the conversation. 1-877-532-5797. We'll be back with more of Keeping It Real with Sharpton. So we'll be right back.
Who is Al Sharpton anyway? Who is this 33-year-old preacher without a church?
A number of black New Yorkers as well. He is little more than a pudgy exhibitionist who can be counted on to show up, bullhorn in hand, at every racial incident.
I often quote Mark Twain saying, "The two most important moments in life is the moment you are born and the moment you find out why you are born." I had a very troubling conversation the other day that prompted me to do this little video. Young man that I've known a while came to me, and he was crushed. I mean, really crushed, because people were criticizing his work. He's in the ministry, but he's also an actor. And he said he couldn't understand why people were jumping all over, criticizing him, trying to find scandalous and derogatory things about him. And I told him, I said, you know, you're very young. You don't know the road I've traveled. They called me everything but a child of God.
A blabbermouth, a loudmouth, too flamboyant, an agitator, a racist,
I
a race
had to
baiter.
learn.
Yeah, right.
I was not defined by how others saw me. I was defined by how I saw myself and whether I was being true to myself. Some of you watching this don't like me. And it doesn't matter as long as I know what I'm doing. And I like me for being real. So I'm doing this video to say to you, whoever you are and whatever you do, you may not be in ministry or social justice, none of this stuff, but don't live your life worried about opposition or people that don't like you. You can turn that around. Use me as an example. The same people that called me a scam artist, a con artist, a sellout, or racial hustler and all, I kept going. And the people I respected started respecting and publicly embracing my work.
When Coretta Scott King, the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., had this to say about Al Sharpton.
A leader who has protested injustice with a passionate, unrelenting commitment to nonviolent action in the spirit and tradition of Martin Luther King Jr. And I am talking about your leader, our leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
The other thing that hasn't changed is the National Action Network's commitment to fight injustice and inequality here in New York City and across America. And that's not only a testament to Reverend Sharpton, it's a testament to all of you who are here tonight.
First and foremost, to Reverend Sharpton. I saw him when he first came on the scene, and I have marveled at his tenacity, at the development of his intellect, and his devotion to our movement, and much he has contributed to the world we are experiencing. I am honored, and I must say that when I had my debate with Dr. King on the issue of the church and religion, He didn't warn me that after his departure, his space would be filled by another preacher, and that preacher would be Al Sharpton.
All you want in life is people that matter to you to say you did all right. And more important, that you can look in the mirror and say you did all right.
Thank you, Rev. Thanks for that introduction. Look, we've known each other for a long time. I'm grateful not only for your leadership and partnership, but quite frankly, more importantly, for your friendship. And thanks to all of you, members of our nation's most important civil rights organization.
You have been, over all of your years, such an extraordinary leader. You are a voice of truth, a voice of conscience, a voice of practicality around what we must address and what we can do. And I thank you so much for your friendship.
I remember that most of the youth around Al's age, he was about 12, wanted to be like Connie Hawkins, a great basketball player, legend, or Earl the Pearl, or Clyde Frazier. Al wanted to be like Adam Powell, a powerful preacher with a social justice gospel. He was very close to, at that time, to Reverend William Augustus Jones, powerful preacher and social justice advocate, and Reverend Gardner Taylor State right down the street, and Bishop Washington, whose church he came from, and Reverend Sandy Ray. He wanted to be like these giant preachers. He wanted them to have the edge, however, of the King's social justice dimension. He wanted to be like them. Now he's one of them. Perhaps taller than most of them because of the risks he has taken and the reward God has given him with his gift. I remember so well that I first escorted him to jail. He was around 13 years old. With the jail fighting the ANP. He was in the lineage of our struggle. He grew up in it. We didn't just see him on TV one night. He didn't happen. He came bottom up, not top down.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join, take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement. That's when Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, came to me, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who was pastor here now. That Ethiopian Coptic cross. That was my first hero on civil rights and politics.
As far as I know here, you're in trouble. Where it says about 30% are unemployed. That's why I'm working hard to get this surplus food here. Some of you say to me, well, I'm not like you. I'm not a congressman. I haven't got education. I haven't got work. But you're a human being. And you know what you've got? You've got in your hand the power to use your vote and to use even those few cents you get from welfare to spend them only where you want to spend them.
The families, we have 3 families represented here. Where we have Eric Nicholson, who your NAB member, Rodney Nicholson is his father. We have both Lisa and Trevor, who lost their mother, and then we have Evelyn and her children and family. We belong with Zyron, the news that Evelyn McClendon's family. And so we're one.
Let's pray. Dear God, we come brokenhearted, but still with firm belief that there is meaning to everything that you allow. Give us the strength to stand even amidst this debris and to rebuild and to stand up to the challenge. And that we come to help these families as we have been anointed by you to be helpful. Stand with the clergy and others in this community and the leaders here to know that they're not alone. And let us not go for vanity, but for sanity.
Yes.
And to redeem this community as an example to people all over the world, that you may be burned down, but you're not burnt out. And that you will make a way out of nowhere. These blessings we ask on each and every one of these people, even when the cameras are going, that you still shine a light of mercy on them. These blessings we ask in your name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join, take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement. Reverend Al Sharpton, and we are back. Let me thank Dominique Sharpton, my daughter, for hosting the first 2 hours other than one spot. And I want to thank her for sitting in. I went to St. Patrick's Cathedral to participate in the memorial mass for Pope Francis, and then just spoke at the environmental rally for environmental justice down at Federal Square with Senator Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand and many others. And what Donald Trump as president is supposed to do is come with an executive order as early as today, defunding a lot of the environmental groups that receive federal funds. He can come with an executive order because that's under the executive branch, saying that they are, in some instances, terrorists. And these are groups that deal with clean water, clean air, disproportionately in our community. So I wanted to be part of that. But we're back, we're live on the show. You can call in at 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797, or you can go online. We are live streaming at www.nationalactionnetwork.net. I'm joined, as I am every Tuesday at this hour, by the senior pastor of the First Corinthian Baptist Church of Harlem and a member of the National Board of National Action Network, the Reverend Dr. Michael Walron. How you doing, Reverend?
Pretty good, Reverend Sharpton. How you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. One of the things I was anxious to ask you about, I'm glad I got back in time to have this dialogue with you and the listeners. Pope Francis, the world is mourning, and though you and I are not Catholic, and there may be some theological differences that we would have, it would be fair to say, though, that he was a different kind of pope, brought the Catholic world different in a different way. Born and raised in Argentina, had been a poor man, a bouncer, did all kind of manual labor, and he was not the traditional pope. So he identified with the poor and talked about that a lot when he was pope. He identified with right. He denounced the invasion of Ukraine. He denounced a lot of what was going on in terms of global racism. Others felt he didn't go far enough with the priest scandal, but he was progressive on some, not as much on others. But he brought the church into dealing with a lot of these, the Catholic Church, into dealing with a lot of these issues, including he denounced Donald Trump when he was running. Tell me, and I'm asking you now, not only as a pastor in Harlem, but as a trained theologian who has studied the breadth of religion in this country, from your professorial platform, how you analyze this pope in history, and how you determine who you think are great men and women of faith as opposed to just adequate.
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Rev. I think Pope Francis came at a pivotal time in the Catholic Church and sought to almost reset not just its theological launching pad, but really the practice. I think it is no accident that Pope Francis was a Jesuit priest, and they took the teachings of Jesus seriously. His idea of shunning all that was connected to the papacy as opulence, or even what could be construed as somewhat materialistic, he took it away. He refused to wear the red shoes of the Pope. He wore a pair of black worn-out shoes he had worn for over 20, 30 years. He didn't live in the papal palace. He lived in a small apartment behind the gas station, Rev. I mean, this man showed in embodiment what it meant to be not just a Catholic, but someone who took Jesus' teaching seriously and sought to turn the church in a direction in which it led and leads with love, love being the underlying ethos that shapes his decisions. And he was controversial. His belief in speaking out of blessing same-sex couples, he was very vehement in his liberal theological suppositions, which coming from South America was shaped much by liberation theology, which many people think of liberation theology, they think of James Cone, but the truth is liberation theology has a tremendous birthing in South America.
Right.
And so for me, he comes behind Pope Benedict, who was a staunch conservative theologian before he became the Pope, and he comes with this affirmation of life through the lens of love, and doing things and saying things, whether it had to do with women's role in the Catholic Church, wanting to expand that, the blessing of same-sex marriages, the inclusion of members of the LGBTQ community, and addressing it in a way that wasn't punitive or bombastic. I think he set a new tone. Now, the real question is, and he also put in, I believe, 111 new cardinals. So the real question is, will the church move in a direction that is in alignment with Francis, or will it seek to pull back to its conservative heritage and practice? And that's going to be real telltale. But I think he sought to bring the Catholic Church into a place of relevancy in the 21st century and tried to make it appealing to even younger Catholics and young people of faith by making this kind of appeal to what I'm convinced is being shaped by not only the love ethos of Jesus, but the teachings of Jesus.
And I think that you alluded to it, maybe even directly said it, that it's going to be interesting where they go from here in terms of choosing the next pope. And that's true also in the denominations in our community. I think that a lot of times when we see someone that approaches greatness and change, they could be replaced by people that go back into old ways and kind of outlaw that. It's very interesting because at the memorial today, they sat me on the pulpit, and so I talked to Cardinal Dolan, and I know they all headed to Rome to vote on who's going to be the new pope. I believe the funeral is on Saturday. But we've seen it in our own denominational fights where you've had those that were conservative and those that were more progressive, and that became the fight.
Absolutely. I mean, it is hard to take a very progressive or liberal theological line. I mean, that is the framework out of which I operate and lead. But it's very challenging because the truth is, in many of our churches, we are still very traditional and still very conservative.
Right.
And so it is difficult when you take a stance that may be viewed as progressive or liberal or affirming, but you do this in love. It is amazing how distant and disconnected some people who claim to be part of the faith and followers of Jesus are from the tenets of love and being shaped by that. So I think, the priest took away what had become in many ways this kind of monarchy of the faith through the papacy, which historically has been a very rigid hierarchy. And he brought it in ways that became more accessible by what we would say the average person, more accessible, and he became more relatable and more loving. I think it says something that his last day on earth, in the midst of his condition, in the midst of his own sickness and health, he was committed to engaging the people, wanted to be around the people, wanted to see the people, greet the people, couldn't talk very much. His mobility was limited. But his last act as a pope was greeting and being with the people. Even when everybody recommended he shouldn't do it, it was as if he said, if I'm going to leave this place, I'm going to leave this place loving people.
And I think that's a testimony to who he was. And I think that is absolutely important to point out. Let's take a break. Coming back, and we'll open up the phones, read some of your messages on our message board. 1-877-532-5797, 1-877-532-5797, or you can go to the message board at www.nationalactionnetwork.net and keeping it real. Sharpton. Welcome. Be right back.
Country, talking to the radio announcers, the church people and the street people, telling them that God has smiled on me. God has smiled on you if you got breath in your body. If he woke you up this morning and started you on your way. But I want to tell you some stories of people that God smiled on. We know the story of Dr. Martin Luther King, how he started way back in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, trying just to get dignity, trying to get respect. And he went all the way to the mountaintop. But he didn't forget about the brothers in the valley. He didn't forget about those trapped in the alley. And I hear Brother Martin King say, God has smiled on me. He's been good to me. Let me tell you, God has smiled on me. It's been so good to me. Then I see as Dr. King went on, another man stepping to the forefront by the name of John F. Kennedy, who rose up and said, let's not stand back. Let's not wait for a handout. Let's wait for a way out. He said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He said, don't us gravel and don't us moan, because God doesn't smile on us. Let me say it. God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Let me say it. God has smiled on me. One more time. I want to say real song. I'll say God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Pick it up. Backstage at the Apollo Theater, and I saw a man come out. They call him the King of Soul, James Brown. And James Brown said, Reverend, don't you worry. I started out as a shoe shine boy. I started out as a convict. I started out uneducated. But I learned to sing my song, and I sung it all over the world. I told him it was a man's world. I told him about the big payback. I told him Papa got a brand new bag. And all over the world, they can hear my voice. But Reverend, don't you frown. Don't you bow your head. Tell him what you told me, Brother Brown. I said, God has smiled on me. He has set me free. Yeah. He has set me free. God smiled on me. You've been so good to me. Then I went home and I told my mother what Brown told me. And she said, son, even though we don't have much, we don't need relief. All we need is belief. And she said, he didn't tell you no lie, because the Lord will take care of you. God sits high, but he looks down low. And every time you get discouraged, every time you're burdened down, all you have to do is think of the things that God made a way for you and look toward the heavens. Lift your eyes to the hills and say, God, 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 don't smile on me. Now then the God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God has smiled on me. And that has been so good to me. Yes, he has. I say God smiled on me. He has set me free. And I know all over the country, smile on me. We need jobs. We need a way to make it. We need help. We need jobs. We need a way to make some money to feed our families and raise our bread. We need a way to survive, so we don't need crime as a survival kit. We just need a little bit. But don't give the hope up. Don't lose the faith, because God will smile on you. God will give you the strength. God will make a way for you. Adam Great Power said, keep the faith. Keep the faith, baby. I hear Robert Kennedy saying that it's not the dream of, but it's the dream that'll live on forever. Just know that God will smile on you. Dr. King had a dream. Dr. King said, I went to the mountaintop, but I didn't stop there. I looked over and saw the promised land. I hear Brother Malcolm saying, don't sit on the stoop. Stand up and be a man. Respect yourself. Be somebody. Then I hear the brothers in the Hispanic community say, I'm going to stand up and be a man. I'm going to do the best I can. I had a reaper say, I don't care what time you come home, but just give me some respect when you get there. God has smiled on me. He has set me free. God smiled on me. You've been so good to me. Sit down. And as we move on in history, let us remember that if we look to God, God has the answer to all of our problems. God is still the same God he was years ago, and we can still make it. We can still hold on like Frederick Douglass did. We can still keep him on like Martin Luther King did. We can still ride on the way everyone that made it did. They didn't have much, but they had a whole lot of faith. They didn't have money, but they had a lot of determination. We know that God will look out for his children, that God will make a way out of no way. If you just faith and refuse to lose. And God will make a way because God's children don't have color. God's children just have will. And I can still hear somewhere in my mind James Brown say, God has found me. He has set me free. Let me sing here. Yeah, Lord. Yeah, Lord.
Thank you for joining us for Weekdays Live with Reverend Al Sharpton. Take the time to share this broadcast right now. Tell your friends it's time to keep it real with Reverend Al. Comment your questions now in the chat or call Reverend Al Sharpton directly on air at 877-532-5797. Now stay tuned for Reverend Al.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton. As you watch the broadcast, support National Action Network. Go to www.nationalactionnetwork.net and be involved. You can join, take your membership right online, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Getting ready to start the program, but we need you to be part of the movement. No just stand still. No just stand still. No just stand still. What do we want? What do we want?
We are the sons and the daughters. We gotta stand up and make it loud. Just like our God told the Pharaoh, let my people go, go. We are a new generation from the ones who have come before. He's calling us into freedom. Let my people go, go. We're gonna shine and shade. Give me a papa glory, make the heavens. If you don't say you know we're trouble, let my people go, go. The blood, sweat, and the tears that we gathered through the years.
Keeping it real. I'm your host, Reverend Al Sharpton, and we're back. Reverend Dr. Michael A. Walron is our co-host. One of the things that you have to do, Dr. Walron, as pastor, is deal with a lot of people that face criminal justice issues, whether they be guilty or not. That's part of the ministry that you and I both have, even though I don't approach it as a pastor, I do it from a civil rights point of view. And then we see the misuse of the justice system, where we see this guy, Garcia, being held in El Salvador, the government admitting that it was an administrative error that put him there, but they're not going to do anything. And they're using that to rally their base that you should be able to pick up homegrown criminals without due process. So I don't know what qualifies them to be a criminal if you can't defend yourself. And now I'm reading on our statement page, people going back and forward about the accusations made against New York State Attorney General Tish James on some real estate fraud. Tanya Stovell says, no, I don't think Tish James is going to jail at all. Donald Trump needs to go to jail. If the GOP had did their job in 2016 and impeached him, we would not be going through this. And then Mayor Rodney Jones, Mayor Queensbridge Houses, saying AG Tish is from BK, Brooklyn, don't play. But let me ask you, when you look at the Garcia case, when you look at what they're alleging on the Attorney General of the state that many of us feel is just a political hit from the Trump-type people, the MAGA type, how do we, as from a faith and church point of view, what do we do to disseminate the difference between what we fight for, not fight for, and what is our obligation in terms of how we deal with the criminal justice system?
Yeah, I think, in the Garcia case, it's very interesting. We first heard that there was a clerical error that led to him being sent to this foreign prison in El Salvador. Well, then the Trump administration began to get some horrible press behind that, especially with things like his wife was 8 months pregnant and he was taken away. So then they did what they do best. They create narratives, whether they be true or not, false narratives, to justify the decision instead of owning or taking responsibility. And the narrative was, well, at the end of the day, he was actually MS-13. So now instead of addressing the mistake and to correct it by whatever means were necessary, now you create a narrative for the base to justify your disengagement with the issue and unwillingness to help try to bring this man back home. That is what we've seen, and that's what we've seen so far in this administration. We saw it the first term. We're seeing it now more intensely. The creation and fabrication of narratives to justify decisions, whether it be through fake math that they put out there around trying to hide these tax cuts to billionaires, whether it be through saying that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. I mean, it's the fabrication of narratives to justify their decisions and their actions that are actually unjust and detrimental to this country and many of the marginalized in this country, I think. And so that's one thing. I do think, though, on another note, it also reminds us, and those of us in the African-American community are very familiar with how inconsistent and how justice has not really been blind when it comes to us. I think about, for example, Rev, someone you know, Brian Benjamin, right, former lieutenant governor of New York, who, if he doesn't have the capacity or resources to challenge the Southern District, like many people, he might have found himself in jail for something that a federal judge absolutely threw out. The indictment was frivolous at best.
Right.
And so he and I have had conversations with countless people in our community, have found themselves taking plea deals and were actually innocent. But for the fear of the possibility of what could happen, they settle, and they know they're innocent. That is wrong. So in our country, if you have resources and ability, you can try to get a modicum of justice. But if you don't have those resources, our prisons and jails are filled with people who have been unjustly put in prison and jail because they didn't have the resources to fight what was viewed as an illegal legal maneuver.
No, well,
Right?
I totally agree. I just came back from the press conference at Foley Square, and I was showing the brothers in the car with me. We passed the criminal court building where 30-something years ago, the prosecutor in the Tawana Brawley case, who wanted to get even with me for standing up for her, because I believed her, and I believed the two lawyers, put charges against me, and I was acquitted in that building. I'll never forget that. And the jury said, you ain't got no evidence of any of this you claiming against Sharpton. They will put you through it. Luckily, several of the lawyers that came through and said, we'll defend him for nothing. One, who was the lawyer that brought me in the Brawley case, said, no, I'm going to do it myself. But how many people have access to that? That was because I was in a cause in a case that was well known, or others because they have money. But you deal with parishioners every day that nobody knows, no resources, and some legal aid guy say, take a plea, you'll do 3 years, you'll be out. For something he didn't do.
Something didn't do for fear. And that is more rampant than we think in our criminal justice system. And unfortunately, it hits black and brown people in particular. But I think it is sad. It is sad. And then now we're in a moment where we're seeing a president who is a convicted felon now decide, well, if I don't want to do it, I don't have to listen to courts, the Supreme Court. I don't have to listen to judges. We're going to do what we want to do. This is unprecedented in our political history in this country, whether we know it or realize it or not, that we are on the brink of really living in an authoritarian regime, and we're seeing it played out before us. And the problem, Rev, that is getting people is it seems like we are powerless to do anything.
Well, I think that we've got to empower our people to know we got to fight back. Let's go back to the phone. Let me go to this prolific and energetic labor leader in Detroit, Percy Johnson, my man Percy Johnson, keeping it real with Sharpton and Wall Run.
Thank you, Brother Al, for bringing me home. And I don't know, Dominique, your dad, look out for me. I've been waiting for about 2 hours. But look here, man, I want to point this out, man. You know, I feel that we got to strategically use the plan that Al Green is talking about with impeaching Donald Trump to the full extent of not only, and your daughter mentioned it too, because she was saying, yeah, well, the president did get impeached before, which he did, because we had the majority,
right.
Democrat majority in the House, but we didn't go to we didn't have the majority in the Senate
right.
to where we could convict him after his impeachment. And this is where our conversation needs to be going with the movement of what we got now, because the gentleman that's on now, I'm quite sure he understands that this is where we have our power. In 2026, we talking about 2028? No, we need to be strategically talking about 2026, putting the Democrat in majority in the Congress and pointing out to people how the majority in Congress with the Republicans right now are not doing anything to stop and protect us like we should be protected as citizens in our country. And we need to put the Democrats in majority Congress so we can reverse these actions that they are putting on us, and we can go back to the plan of making our country, you done heard me say it before, where we have liberty and justice for all, and we building our country up instead of busting our country down and making it so only the people that are on the high end are being able to get the money that they're going to get so they can really just buy stuff that we're losing out on.
That's
They
right.
want to buy, they want to destroy us where they're taking our farms, our homes, our schools, and keep us oppressed instead of doing what we need to do to be lifted up as citizens to be the best we can be. We got to get civically engaged and take out the Republican majority in Congress and put in the Democrat majority in power, and we can start getting what we need to have a better nation.
All right. Thank you for your call, Percy. Let's take a break on that. Keeping it real. Sharpton. Wall
So who is Al Sharpton anyway? Who is this 33-year-old preacher without a church?
A number of black New Yorkers as well. He is little more than a pudgy exhibitionist who can be counted on to show up, bullhorn in hand, at every racial incident.
I often quote Mark Twain saying, the two most important moments in life is the moment you are born and the moment you find out why you were born. I had a very troubling conversation the other day that prompted me to do this little video. Young man that I've known a while came to me and he was crushed. I mean, really crushed, because people were criticizing his work. He's in the ministry, but he's also an actor. And he said he couldn't understand why people were jumping all over, criticizing him, trying to find scandalous and derogatory things about him. And I told him, I said, you know, you're very young. You don't know the road I've traveled. They call me everything but a child of God.
A blabbermouth, a loudmouth, too flamboyant, an agitator, a racist,
I had to learn.
Yeah, right.
I was not defined by how others saw me. I was defined by how I saw myself and whether I was being true to myself. Some of you watching this don't like me. And it doesn't matter as long as I know what I'm doing. And I like me for being real. So I'm doing this video to say to you, whoever you are and whatever you do, you may not be in ministry or social justice, none of this stuff, but don't live your life worried about opposition or people that don't like you. You can turn that around. Use me as an example. The same people that call me a scam artist, a con artist, a sellout, or racial hustler and all, I kept going. And the people I respected started respecting and publicly embracing my work.
When Coretta Scott King, the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., had this to say about Al Sharpton.
A leader who has protested injustice with a passionate, unrelenting commitment to nonviolent action in the spirit and tradition of Martin Luther King Jr. And I am talking about your leader. our leader, the Reverend Sharpton.
The other thing that hasn't changed is the National Action Network's commitment to fight injustice and inequality here in New York City and across America. And that's not only a testament to Reverend Sharpton, it's a testament to all of you who are here tonight.
First and foremost, to Reverend Sharpton. I saw him when he first came on the scene, and I have marveled at his tenacity, at the development of his intellect, and his devotion to our movement, and much he has contributed to the world we are experiencing. I am honored, and I must say that when I had my debate with Dr. King on the issue of the church and religion, he didn't warn me that after his departure, his space would be filled by another preacher, and that preacher would be Al Sharpton.
All you want in life is people that matter to you to say you did all right. And more important, that you can look in the mirror and say you did all right.
Thank you, Rev. Thanks for that introduction. Look, we've known each other for a long time. I'm grateful not only for your leadership and partnership, but quite frankly, more importantly, for your friendship. And thanks to all of you, members of our nation's most important civil rights organization.
You have been, over all of your years, such an extraordinary leader. You are a voice of truth, a voice of conscience, a voice of practicality around what we must address and what we can do. And I thank you so much for your friendship.
I remember that most of the youth around Al's age, he was about 12, wanted to be like Connie Hawkins, a great basketball player, legend, or Earl the Pearl, or Clyde Frazier. Al wanted to be like Adam Powell, a powerful preacher with a social justice gospel. He was very close to, at that time, to Reverend William Augustus Jones, powerful preacher and social justice advocate, and Reverend Gardner Taylor State right down the street, and Bishop Washington, whose church he came from, and Reverend Sandy Ray. He wanted to be like these giant preachers. He wanted them to have the edge, however, of the King's social justice dimension. He wanted to be like them, now he's one of them. Perhaps taller than most of them because of the risks he has taken and the reward God has given him with his gift. I remember so well that I first escorted him to jail. He was around 13 years old with the jail fighting the ANP. He was in the lineage of our struggle. He grew up in it. We didn't just see him on TV one night. He didn't happen. He came bottom up, not top down.
Stop telling yourself you're not confident of what you could do. When people with half your skills and a quarter of your talent have gone on to create big waves in life, if you look at them and you know you're more gifted than them, then what is your problem? You are looking for someone to come and drag you into success. You got to use what you have, which is, in my judgment, more skillful than others I've known in your areas. Use that and believe in that, and your confidence will build up as you get going and start doing. And don't chase the spotlight. Sharpen your skills. Live in your purpose, and you'll get so good the spotlight will be chasing you. Be so good they can't help but talk about you and put the spotlight on you. You don't get your energy from chasing the spotlight. You get your energy by chasing your purpose. The spotlight and other adulation will come with it. Have a great day.
If you understand what faith is, I'm a minister of faith. In the Bible, faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things unseen. If you could figure it out,
Keeping it real. I'm your host, Reverend Al Sharpton. Reverend Dr. Michael A. Walron is our co-host, and let me remind you, watch Politics Nation with Al Sharpton live at 5 p.m. Eastern Time every Saturday and Sunday. And we had, even on Easter weekend, hundreds of thousands watched both nights. And we had the guests on for you, broke into their Easter and did it with us this weekend. We will have even more. As I said earlier, even I was surprised. We beat CNN in the ratings both nights. So keep supporting the show, and I'll keep bringing the right guests and ask the questions others won't ask. Every Saturday and Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on MSNBC. And, of course, you in the New York area, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, meet me or beat me to the Saturday Action Rally. I will be there this Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in Harlem, 145th and Lenox. And we're gearing up for the big August 28th march. We usually go to Washington to commemorate the anniversary of the March on Washington that day. But this year we come to Wall Street. It's to put the corporate world on and the financial world on notice that we're holding them accountable with our dollars. And we've got all our chapters that left the convention organized, and I've been having conference calls, and I'm going to go on tour meeting people in various cities, organizing them to be in New York. We're going to march from the African Burial Ground to Wall Street, where the stock exchange is, and we are going to raise this issue. Without continued pressure, nothing's going to happen. We met Moriel of the Urban League and Johnson of the NAACP and Maya Wiley. All of us met this morning with the chair of the president of Google. We're going to all these companies saying, what are y'all going to do about DEI? Bring the things back. Some companies I've been doing just National Action Network. Others we did today collective. Others we're trying to support local groups. And if we just stay out each other's way, we can turn some of these companies around, because they're saying, well, we don't want to do this, but we can't say to Washington, well, we between a rock and a hard place. What are we going to do about the civil rights groups? Because we ain't been saying nothing. And then when we do, we start getting so messy with each other that they can escape through the holes we leave open. That's why I won't play into a lot of foolishness. My eyes on the prize. We must save the jobs and the contracts and the corporate board of directors and all for our people, rather than to just win arguments or who shot John and all that. Some of us love mess because we're messy. So for you that are ready to help with the March, August 28th, and you may not be an organizer, but you can talk to people in your house, on your block, in your job, on your job, in your church, in your sorority, but don't know what to say. Every Friday, I'm going to send you a message to say all you have to do is sign up at www.nationalactionnetwork.net, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. Dr. Walron, what's going on at FCBC in Harlem?
Was the inaugural gala of our FCBC Community Development Corporation.
Yeah.
And we made an amazing announcement, Rev, the first of its kind in New York City, in our state, and some people think the country.
Wait a minute, something is bleeding over to him. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was saying last Wednesday we had our inaugural gala for our FCBC Community Development Corporation. We made a major announcement through a grant from the borough president's office for $542,000. We will have, by the end of this year, the first mobile mental health unit in New York City and New York State. A mobile RV mental health unit. Instead of people coming to us, we're going to be taking mental health and healing and practitioners to the community to offer free mental health care.
Now, tell our audience around the country how important it is for us to get out of this, I want to say, complex or habit of trying to hide mental health problems in our families, in ourselves, that we really need to mature to the point where mental health is a reality that can be dealt with, that can be doctored to.
Well, I think one of the ways is doing what you're doing now, raising it, talking about it. And that takes away the stigma connected to mental health issues. We have to destigmatize it, demythologize it, and really talk about the need to have access to mental health care. We talk about the need to have access to free health care and better health care. Well, that applies to mental health care as well. And so for us, it is priority number one in our communities because many people suffer in silence in our community. And we have at the Hope Center, HOPE stands for Healing on Purpose and Evolving. Right now we got a wait list of 120 people. So having this mobile unit will help us reach people who can't always get to us. It's called Hope on Wheels, and it is the very first of its kind in our state and in our city. And I know it won't be the last because this is so necessary to just the way we have prostate cancer units and breast cancer awareness units. We're going to have a mental health unit as well, mobile unit. So I'm excited. It was a big announcement made, and it's just the beginning.
Now, exactly. Describe for our listeners around the country, how's it going to work?
Well, if any of our listeners have been in communities, and many of us have seen them big RVs for like prostate screening,
right?
Well, this will be the same thing. It'll be a large RV that'll have small cubicles in it, soundproof for one-on-one mental health care access. We'll have security there in the unit, and we'll have practitioners in the unit. And so that's how it'll work. And people will be able to make appointments in advance, especially when we bring it to certain communities in the city right now, in Manhattan. And we'll be partnering with other churches or other community-based organizations that are focused on mental health care to set up times and locations and appointments with people. So we won't be doing this alone. We'll be partnering with other organizations and churches in particular. And I think that's where we're going to make the difference. Imagine there are many churches who do this on Sunday with regard to prostate or breast cancer. So imagine coming out of the church on a Sunday, Rev, and seeing a mental health mobile unit parked in front of the church offering free mental health
No,
care.
that it's phenomenal. And like you said, it's never happened, but it can catch on. I remember during COVID, we had gotten some mobile units after having people just come get food at the House of Justice and other places. You did it. So people now know how to deal with being serviced, but the mental health area is something that we still dealt with almost like a scarlet letter, and you've ripped that off of the scab to deal with it because we all know people in our families that have mental health challenges, and we need to deal with it. It doesn't make them crazy. It makes them in need of some help.
Look, you know it and I know it, Rev. Social justice looks different, and it's on many different fronts. And I think one of the things that gets ignored by so many, and you've alluded to this, is the mental health crisis in our country right now. It's a crisis because it's also a workforce crisis. I want you to think, and I think the last stats I looked at in New York City alone, there are 8 million plus people. But in New York State, the state, man, there's only 11,000 licensed mental health providers, right?
Wow.
It's a crisis. It's
Wow.
a crisis. So, and that's a workforce crisis around the country. We have more people than we have clinicians to deal with the mental health crisis this country is facing right now. And I think in these kind of perilous times we're in right now politically, it definitely has mental health impacts for many people who begin to be consumed with anxiety.
Absolutely right. We almost out of time. Let me see if I can get Jacob in here at Philadelphia, WURD 900. Jacob.
We lost Jacob, sir.
We lost Jacob. Do we have Alicia from Seattle, 1620?
Everybody else, that was it. That was the last call.
Okay, that was the last call. We out of time. Let me say this, though. As Reverend Walron, let me ask you one question, Dr. Walron. As you look at the present environment, political environment that we're under Trump, we're not only dealing with a toxic political environment, we're dealing with a toxic spiritual environment. Once we normalize locking up people by accident that has no evidence, I mean, there's something spiritually dead about people that have no sensitivity to abusing and taking away people from their families when their first child's being born. There's a spiritual perversion there.
Absolutely, because we're witnessing the erosion of empathy. We're witnessing the erosion of the idea of taking care of one another, building community, being our brothers and sisters' keepers. This is all disappearing right in front of our eyes. We're seeing the normalization of lies, the normalization of false narratives. We're seeing people who are vulnerable and marginalized in this country under direct attack. These things have direct impact upon our spirit, upon our minds, our psyche, our souls. And we cannot take that for granted. This is not just about politics, as you said, Rev, and how we vote come midterms. This is about how we not save the soul of America, but literally save the spirit of many people who feel depleted, emotionally overwhelmed, and beat down by some decisions right now that have been made. There are people who are at the brink of retirement who have deep anxiety about whether or not they'll have anything to retire with. This is a critical moment, and people are spiritually feeling angst as well as politically and socially.
Absolutely right. Well, let me thank Reverend Dr. Michael A. Walron. Let me thank Dominique for covering me for more than half the show, most of the show today. Let me thank you that called in, listened in, you that called in and couldn't get through, but hung in there anyhow. Remember, whatever you do, wherever you go, however you feel, tell somebody, tell anybody, tell everybody. Reverend Al told you personally, keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Keep it real.